Holding back these feelings, I wonder if gon' be the last time. And I know that I want you so bad. In my head I'm saying, fuck all of that. And I know that I'm getting parts that I can't help staying. You keep coming back. And I want it away. Oh, you know, you come and see me after midnight. And I want it away. Oh, you know, you think gonna be after midnight. We can't get it together. I can't let you slip away. Get it together. Get it together. Oh, we can't get it together. I can't let you slip away. Get it together. And I want it away. Oh, you only come and see me after midnight. And I want it away. Oh, you only think about me after midnight.
I wish I spent the summer looking in your eyes, reflecting life through shadows. I feel the sunset coming and you said goodbye, goodbye. Whenever you say you need me, I just stop. Faces in the dark, places that we fly through, just a me apart. The rain on my skin, tears upon your face, upon your face. Oh, lost, don't want to show. I wish you see yourself in someone else's eyes. Do you see or do you really see? I feel the night coming, going down the stairs. All my phones ping me up the stars where I can be with you. The stars, faces in the dark, places that we fly.
Hello, everyone. Welcome today to Map Control Episode 2. I am one of your hosts, Dream, or at Roy Rogue on Twitter, joined by the legendary and, might I say, very beautiful. How are you doing, Yumi?
You call me beautiful? Oh,
I did call you beautiful, man. It's all about
Yeah.
positivity here at Map Control.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm happy to like we've gotten to a second episode. We do the first one. We're not too sure like how things will go, what the response is like, but so far we've not received anything overtly negative and any sort of like critical feedback. So it's good to see that like people are at least enjoying it so far.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people messaging me as well personally, just asking when it's going to be on. I want to see it live and stuff like that. So we start out with a thank you to everyone who has supported us on Twitter, the messages, everything. It means a lot to us. But we do get started in today's episode, and our topics changed a little bit. Just one topic added before we we didn't expect it. News came out from the Fierce Esports camp. It will come up on your screen in a second here by Fraser. Fierce have added cutitng. I mean, I think we kind of expected that, but it's become official.
Yeah, I mean, Toten G or Totung was a player that they used to play with on the old Bulldog lineup. So Swaggy, Avi, and I think Emin had also played with him as well in like a version of the Bulldog lineup during like the sort of months leading up to the Omen qualifiers. So they definitely know of his ability, they know of his skills, and they've played with him before in previous lineups. I think even I want to say before Bulldog as well, but that part's a little bit hazy. So I mean, it was like you said, especially after we saw how good they did in the minor qualifiers. We kind of expected that Toten G would probably become a long-standing member of the roster.
Yeah, I mean, it made sense, really. The minor performance was fantastic for them, beating Aggo and Pride. Obviously, we touched on that. They currently are doing good in some of the other leagues as well. Obviously, we'll touch on that a little bit later. Don't want to jump ahead of ourselves. But this is a good pickup, I think, for Fierce.
Yeah.
I like to see where they're going. I think currently they're playing a game with him in ESEA Main. They've played the last 2 games with him at least, and they are 11-3 in ESEA Main. So it's a good showing by them in Main. Hopefully see them in advance next season with the likes of CEX and XZenX. But we will get into our next topic now, and that is the Grosvenor finals. This is going to be good. See this coming up. Obviously, another LAN. It was kind of an unexpected announcement by Epic LAN when it came out. You've done some work with them, casting as well. It was some good events, I thought. Really well run. Seemed like everyone got along at them. Obviously, I'm sure there was the shouting and whatnot, giving it to each other. You love to see it, really. But it seemed like it was run really well. Some good teams attending. The likes of Endpoint obviously attended, won their version of the LAN. But we do get into our predictions now, but we will just quickly go through the rosters, actually, and the teams attending. So CEX, Stiffmeister, Endpoint, plus 10 ELO, which is C3 Star, Dansky, Capers, Neff, and Whisk. Free Error, Mog, Emmy, Crit, Danny, and Mr. Hoy. Revelation Gaming, unfortunately, going to be without Leaf for this event as well, due to him being under the age of 18. So they have PKL standing in for them. And then IGI Esports, who obviously upset Boaster's team in the online qualifier. Very unexpected to beat them in the finals of that. I believe it was just a best of 1, but still taking a map off them like that and securing themselves in the finals is good. And then the team for Vela Gaming, haven't really heard of them, don't know much about them, but they were the wild card pick to get into this team, into this final. So good for them, I suppose. I can't imagine they'll do much at this LAN, but it'll be interesting to see. So now we'll go for our predictions. Yumi, I'll let you start. Who do you think will take this event?
I think it's hard not to give it to either Endpoint or Stiffmeisters, right? Stiffmeisters, they're playing really well kind of as they form this new team. It's obviously the remnants of the Wind and Rain roster. So Wind and Rain initially qualified through the Coventry qualifier, but because that team has since kind of broken up, they've made a new roster of Stiffmeisters. And yeah, just the sheer firepower and kind of the experience of all these players, it's going to be hard to not put them in kind of the top 1, top 2. Endpoint have obviously been the kind of leading UK team as far as previous EPS, and just they seem to just topple every other UK team. It seemed like CX and Vex were kind of close behind, but they never really. I don't think Vex and Endpoint actually ended up playing each other that often.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to crown a champion like that, but obviously placing well in Insomnia and stuff like that. It's Endpoint or Stiffmeisters to win it, I think. And it'll just come down to really who shows up on the day, because Endpoint technically should be better as a team, but it depends on the individuals.
Yeah, I agree with that analogy. I think it is going to come down to the individuals. Obviously, they did recently lose Robin, who was in-game leading for the team, I believe. I think Mighty Max has taken that over. Previous iterations of Endpoint, he would have IGL'd anyways, I assume. So I'm sure he can fit perfectly into that. They are using Ardis for this, who is obviously previously with the Diabolus team. Before that, unfortunately disbanded, which is why we have the new Stiffmeister team. Now, if we move down towards sort of the lower places, obviously my prediction again is either Stiffmeister or CX. I have Stiffmeister over Stiffmeister or Endpoint. I have Stiffmeister over Endpoint. I think the talent in that roster, the likes of Eccles after his European stint with Fnatic Academy, I think that should give them the edge. But you never know with the likes of Endpoint. They've had a pretty poor MDL season, really. It's been quite hard to watch some of the games they've played. It's been so close in a lot of the games. It's not like they've been getting blown out. A lot of the games are overtimes against the likes of LDLC. They've been getting 16-14 losses all the time. It's been quite upsetting, really, because they could have won these games quite easily, but it came down to mistakes, or it came down to just the team closing out against them. But we will move down to the lower rank. For me, in sort of third and fourth place, it was quite hard to decide between CEX and plus 10 Elo. Obviously, plus 10 Elo, as I mentioned, C3 Star, Dansky, Capers, Neff, and Whisk. I know we obviously know a lot about Capers after recently coming off of Fierce. I'm sure he'll be able to perform at this LAN decently well. He was in game leading for Fierce, so hopefully now in this sort of mixed, I'll be able to come out as an individual player. Whisk, we know a lot about Whisk. He is a great individual player, young still, standing in for the Vex team in all the UK tournaments they entered in after they made moves away from the UK scene, and now they only have 2 UK players, I believe. But then CEX, the reason I had them as fourth is Murky is unable to attend, obviously, again, due to the age restrictions, need to be 18. He was unable to attend, which is why I put them at fourth. I don't know if you agree with that, Oh.
I'd kind of put CX as third just because of their history, but you make a good point. Obviously, they've been practicing with Rookie for a while now. It seems like they'll be missing a piece of the equation, at least in terms of how they want to approach the games. I especially because they qualified through one of the first kind of Grosvenor qualifiers, right? So it was they entered with obviously a very different roster with Fraser, with I'm trying to think who else was on the lineup. I think
James
Brezu or Casa was already out by that time. Yeah, James BT would have been on that.
Yeah.
So having to come back to James BT, I imagine there might be. They've probably water under the bridge. That's probably not a non-issue now as well. But they may have a different approach from how they set up initially.
And you got to remember, Murky's a very, very big piece of firepower for that team on that AWP. Has so much impact in all the games they play, in advanced, at LANs, in all the leagues that they play. Murky is a big advantage for them as a team, which is why I rated it as a pickup. Unfortunately, they did have to get rid of Frazier for it.
And now they don't have an AWPer at all, right? Because Frazier's out as well. So.
Exactly. So now they have to go to James BT. Frazier has had, I thought, good impact for that team with the AWP, and Murky certainly had impact with that AWP. Still, though, Rezu, Nuke Dog, LS, and Zenlex, 4 very good individual players in their own right. They can certainly achieve something at this LAN, and I think it will be hard to see them below sort of 4th place. But from about 3rd to, I'd say, 6th, which is Revelation Gaming, where I have them at the moment, it can be a toss-up, really, of where the individual players perform from that team. So Free Era, for example, is Mog, Emmy, Crit, Danny, Mr. Hoy. Mr. Hoy, obviously a very good individual player. Again, another one of the young ones. He can play really well at any event he goes to. He was great at LAN with lifts. Danny, he's played in PL a lot. I've had the pleasure of working with him in several teams as well. He's a very smart player, great aim as well. We move on then to Crit, plays currently for U4XGG in EPS and I believe intermediate on main. And then it's Mog and Emmy, both again very good players. So if those individuals are able to show up, I could certainly see them getting towards possibly even 3rd place, 4th place. Again, with Revelation Gaming, that roster could certainly show up individually. But I think 7th and 8th are pretty much set with Vela and IGA. I can't see them doing much more.
Yeah, I think IGI probably have the advantage in that as well, right? They're probably the 7th seed just because I mean, granted, this is UKCL, UKAL players, and they've attended many a LAN, but I don't think they've ever really come out with many good results. They kind of shocked us at 25 with how good that they placed as a team, because I don't think they had a very good seed, but they still went toe to toe with some of the higher seeded teams in that tournament. So I don't know. I'm hopeful for IGI to at least pull out an upset, pull a few games away from maybe Revelation plus 10 elo, maybe a 3 era. Just depends on the day, right? Like you said, it's just a huge toss up between that kind of third through sixth seed.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly right. And if you look at the individual players for IGA, I can't see them competing on an individual level anywhere close to the likes of CX plus 10 elo, even Revelation Gaming in 3 era. Certainly a good team in what they've done with Intermediate. They recently made a roster change, adding the Epic 25 admin Shuby. Obviously, everyone knows Shuby, everyone loves Shuby. But adding him and taking him on as an IGL, I rate that move. I can't remember who I think it was someone who was like Trials or something, not the Trials that we know, but it was someone else called Trials, I believe, that they removed to add for him. Fair enough. I hope helps them. I hope they're able to come out with some upsets. Definitely a team that you would look to go for upsets. But for Vela, honestly, I know nothing about the team. I can't rate them any higher than that. I then last place really, because they got the wild card. They went out in the first round of the qualifiers as well. So
yeah, they're a team that I think attended multiple qualifiers, and sure they didn't place too well, but they are one of the only I think there's only 2 teams this event that haven't changed anybody in their lineup, and it is 3 era and Favela. 3 era obviously a bit more well known, a bit more respected, but Favela are, by all intents and purposes, a team. So I'd like to think that because they've been given this wildcard pick, they've at least been like practicing hard for it, because this is really their time to at least make somewhat of a name for themselves, right? You could pull some games against teams that have organizations backing them. You could pull a few games or a few like maps off of teams that have established themselves within sort of the LAN circuit in the UK. So yeah, exactly. I have high hopes, but I'm also it's like my expectations are really, really tempered.
Yeah, you have to be with these types of teams, especially when you don't know much about them. And sorry, it was Tricks, not Trials. I knew it. I don't know why I said Trials. I wasn't thinking of the Trials. We obviously knew anyway. The one who plays with U4 XGG, but it was Tricks. I know it somewhere in my head, but thanks to everyone in the chat for pointing me out there. So that's basically our Grosvenor predictions. We have Stiffmeister Endpoint contesting that top 2 position. Stiffmeister may be able to. I can't say with any certainty, that's for sure, that this team is definitely going to take it. Endpoint have always been historically very good against UK teams. They've always had that top seed, really. There's not many teams. I mean, Wind and Rain at a time were able to take over when they were competing in MDL. But, it'll be a battle. I expect to see those teams in the finals for sure. It should be interesting anyway. So then we go plus 10 elo, CEX, 3 era, Rev, IGI, and Favela. Remaining teams, it is basically a battle for third place after that, isn't it? It's nothing much more than them being able to break into the top sort of 2. It's possible. Certainly could be some upsets from maybe CX plus 10. But I doubt it. However, we move now on to the EPS regular season just ended. They have started playoffs, which actually started 13 minutes ago. Started exactly as we went live. I'm sure a lot of people will be going in between that and having a look. So we will just have a look at the standings, where everyone was able to finish. I get that up on my monitor. Yeah, so in Group A, Endpoint take the first seed. I think that's expected in the group that they had. They played very well anyway. And also, I'll go through firstly how people actually qualify for playoffs, because me and Yumi had a bit of a job of finding this.
Yeah, we were struggling.
But we were struggling to find out what actually happened, because obviously me and Yumi are, as individual players in CS, too good for the likes of EPS. So obviously we've never had anything to do with that. I kid, but I
come into the server and they're just scared, man. They're scared.
Basically, the top team of each group goes directly to the live final. I think that makes sense. You get rewarded for being the best team in the group. Third and fourth place from each group will advance to an initial playoff, where they play against each other. So basically, third plays against third, fourth plays against fourth, I believe. and then whoever wins that playoff match goes to face the team who is second in the group, and then the team who wins that gets to the live final. It's it's a mismatch, but once you have a little read of it, it makes sense. So basically, second doesn't go through the first initial round of playoffs. They wait to find out what the third and fourth teams in each group do. Basically, easy enough to understand, I think. But now we go through the standings for these groups. It is Team Endpoint in Group A. They finished top, followed by Vexed. That makes sense. I mean, if I had to make predictions for EPS playoffs going into it, who would finish first and second in that group, I certainly would have had We Hot up there, but it seems like I'm not sure if they got defaulted a lot in this.
I'm pretty sure We Hot are a dead team.
Yeah, I think they are, because they certainly are in Omen. So I had a look at the Omen scores and stuff, and they
defaulted like every game.
They have one win, so I don't know if that was someone defaulted. I don't know what happened there.
I think they played the first like 2 or 3 games, and then not good.
Yeah, not good at all. So Team Endpoint, they finish first, Vex go to second, CEX third, and August fourth. Obviously, August, the team with Adam Nonwine 3-0 and the likes of Imi heading that up. I believe Eccles and stuff were certain players are just filling in basically for that roster. Imi, though, has now left, has retired from playing as far as we know. I assume it is. He's tweeted basically he's given up the mouse, which is unfortunate. He's one of those veteran players, one of the great IGLs, really. That we would have liked to keep in this scene, but I think he's going off to other ventures. I think back to coaching, believe. So we wish him luck in that, obviously, and it's a shame because he is one of those veterans. We talked about this last week on the episode, what the UK scene really is missing, and that was IGLs. So it'd be a shame.
It's leadership. 100%.
Leadership, yeah, exactly right, leadership. So we obviously say goodbye to him. His team, whoever playing in on that roster, though, has qualified for playoffs, obviously, especially the first round. We Hot, they miss out. I believe they are a dead team anyway. So Poster obviously has got an LFT. I believe it's an IGO actually. So maybe he can get picked up by one of these teams. Maybe he'll end up on August. But now we move to Group B, which is Stiffmeister finishing in first place. 24 points. They went undefeated in Group B. And I mean, what can you say?
It's just kind of the usual suspects as well, right? Like we've hyped up Fierce for quite a long time, and they've done well in their group as well, placing second, Fish 1, 2, 3, and Pensioners coming third, fourth. Pensioners, I think, were a mix the entire way through. Fish as well, also a mixed team. You've had a number of those already. Orglis, We Hot, and unfortunately, because Orglis didn't make it through, it's fallen a bit short. But I think it kind of goes back to like a lot of the topics we're covering today. A lot of the teams are kind of established in all of the competitions. So we just talked about Grosvenor and how Stiffmeisters are probably the first seed. It's similar stories here, right? They're kind of the big gun that somebody needs to prove they can beat.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So Stiffmeister, Fierce Esports in second, Pensioners in third, U4X in fourth. I saw that Fish 1, 2, 3 were actually playing in the playoffs, even though they finished fifth. So I'm not quite sure what's going on there, but so we'll just basically move past in the playoff predictions for that. Obviously, Vexed and Fierce, I think, will be the two teams to get through. In that, I think they can fend off anyone in playoffs. I don't think they really have that much competition. Maybe Vexed has a little bit. I think it should be a lot easier for Fierce, though.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's kind of all we have to say about EPS. We haven't really been paying too close attention. There are some teams that we would have liked to have seen maybe there, like maybe U4X, but I mean, they've bottled it. So what can you say, River?
Yeah, exactly. It's unfortunate, but it's pretty set in stone for the UPS playoffs now. We obviously wait and see for that live final. We'll do our predictions for that event as well. It'll only be 4 teams for the live, though. Playoffs again should be a breeze, and that's a problem really. What we have in the UK scene, the tiers are quite sort of big between the skill gaps of a lot of the teams. You have the likes of Endpoint and Stiffmeister, and then it's sort of just everyone below them. However, we do move on now to the Omen League. the Omen League. Obviously, you've been heavily involved in that with the Caster Challenger, winning sort of the initial part of that. Why don't you just sort of start us off with the Omen?
Yeah, I think this is where I just like take over the podcast for like 5 minutes.
Hmm.
Yeah, make it top 8. Obviously, a huge chance for me. Fantastic. I don't need to harp on that at all. But the league's been, I don't know, interesting. It started off very, very intense, very, very close between some of the games. Obviously, you still have the usual suspects finishing on top. So we've got Endpoint and Stiffmeisters placing top. Fierce and Vex kind of tied for third, fourth as well. And that's who's going to make it out into the playoffs, right? You've got 2 semifinals there. And then you've got a finals game that I think is a LAN finals, if I'm not mistaken, but that I think is still to be determined where that is. I don't know if the teams know that either. But then, like, as the league kind of progressed through and through, although you had teams like Revelation and CEX still showing up for their games, still playing them, still trying to fight for those into that top 4, you had teams like WeHot and although they're labeled as Neds, it was Buzzkill before, right? Those teams just ended up like either not showing up. Obviously, Buzzkill losing 2 of their core roster made it a lot harder to fill the position for the actual games, right? Because the core 3 that's left had to play every single game afterwards. And losing those 2 core players is obviously hugely detrimental to that. You have 7 people on your roster for the tournament. You need to be able to fill the slots for your games, and just ended up not working out for either of those teams. So the last couple of days of the Omen League kind of fell a bit flat just because of the fact that these teams didn't show up. There were scheduling issues. Some things came up with certain teams. They weren't allowed to reschedule. Defaults were given. It was a huge thing, unfortunately, and it didn't really need to be. But the top 4, hugely competitive. I think that's going to be really, really close between all these teams. I think Stiffmeisters are still favored to win it. Vexed, I think, have the chance to at least upset or bring themselves back into the contention, because I think Vex were labeled as one of the top UK teams for a while, but they don't really compete domestically, right? So I think if they place well here, or they at least win or bring a few games back or potentially make finals, then they'll solidify themselves a little bit more into the UK scene.
Yeah, well, the problem with Vex in terms of why they don't compete as much domestically as they used to, obviously for tournaments like Omen and EPS, they have to use a stand-in in Whisk. Not that he's a bad player by any means, obviously, but they now have 3 Swedish players, which has become the core of the Vex roster. They obviously retained, I believe it's, Aussie and Vanity are still the remaining 2 UK players. They obviously wanted to go internationally with that roster. You can't really fault them for wanting to improve in that way. It's unfortunate that they've moved a little bit away from the UK scene. Whether that's life, sometimes there's a lot of orgs have done that. But just to clarify with you, it is top 4 that are qualified for playoffs, right?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I don't think. Yeah.
So Revelation CEX didn't qualify. Obviously, Revelation being default on the last day, I still don't think they would have mattered because they would have only had 12 points. However, decent showing from them. Not as good as we would have liked from CEX, but I assume there must have been some sort of problems occurring with scheduling, Face It, and stuff like that.
Also, I think that was about the time that they just added 2 players to the roster, right? So that was introduction of Murky, ZNX, and they're obviously still figuring out things, right? So roster issue is probably the biggest drawback.
And that is problems always making. Well, not always making, but when you make roster changes at these times, it will have detriment on your seasons, etc. So not great for them, and especially at the prize pool for Omen. It's a pretty big tournament. A lot of people, I don't think, in the qualifiers and stuff weren't taking it as seriously as they possibly could have been. It's 30,000. I think it says at the top of it, it's like $30,000 or something like that. And that's a lot of money to be giving out, especially for a team like Fierce or Stiffmeister in general, since they don't have an organisation at the moment. I'm hoping we'll see one picked up for them soon as well. Hopefully one that doesn't bring in some sort of angry twitlongers after about the state of salary or housing or something like that.
Yeah, maybe.
But Revelation, 9 points, not bad. It's probably where I would have put them. Definitely a good team, but unfortunately just weren't able to qualify this time around. I assume we'll probably see another Omen League for them coming after this. Seems like it's had decent viewership on Twitch. I've seen a lot of times where it's a few thousand viewers. They've been using the Faceit channel a lot as well. So it's good to see a new tournament like Omen, which is exactly what the UK scene needs. These tournaments getting involved, giving a nice, decent prize pool, allowing some of the best teams to compete. WeHot, obviously, again, I had a look at some of their games on here, and it's basically just all defaults. They're a dead team, and Neds the last few games as well, I think, were defaults. I think they played a couple under Buzzkill and just were unable to win. And then I think the roster disbanded after the Buzz and Impact left, and then Ryder stood down as well. So there was only 2 left. What can you say about that? It's just unfortunate to see Neds or Buzzkill at the time weren't able to even get close. So that's basically the Omen League. And now predictions for playoffs. What do you think, Yumi?
Well, I think I don't know how it's going to work, but I assume first 2 seeds play third, fourth, right? So I'm assuming Endpoint versus Vex. That should be a game that Vex should, I think, win. I think because it's a best of 3, it should be like 2-1. But I think I'm going to favor Endpoint in that one. Sure, they have the likes of Pith as well playing for Vex, which is a hugely experienced player, and he's kind of made his rounds between the NA scene and the European scene a number of times. But I think that should still be Endpoint's game to win. But I think it's still a toss-up between those 2 teams. I think Stiffmeister and Fierce will be a bit of a shutout. I think Fierce, sure, they've looked good, and sure, they've played really well, like in their minor qualifier spot. They've done well in EPS as well, and they're showing up. But I think Stiffmeisters are still just going to have a lot more depth as players individually. And so if Fierce aren't kind of firing on all cylinders, that's very easily a 2-0 for Stiffmeisters.
Certainly. I mean, Fierce, they have the capabilities, they have the roster, they have the history, certainly, to be able to try and overcome a team like Stiffmeister. But I think in the best of 3s as well, you've got to give it to like Stiffmeister in that particular matchup. Fierce, though, certainly could be able to. And again, it's becoming closer at the top of this scene now, and it's what you like to see. Fierce is starting to grind up there. They've got decent players.
And maybe I'm underestimating Fierce, right? The addition of Toten G maybe adds something that they needed before. I think they're a hugely capable roster, right? But it's just about whether the experience kind of outweighs.
I think certainly it could be a problem with the roster. That maybe they just haven't enough time to gel to beat a team like Stiffmeister. We could be underestimating them in general. However, Fierce might be underestimating them. But I think it's fair to give the prediction that Stiffmeister will take that. Endpoint and Vex, I think that will be a close affair. I mean, there's only 3 points between first, second. I mean, basically on points, everyone's joined, and first and second, they're both joined.
It's tied first, tied third, so it's a bit of an odd one.
Yeah, but I would like to see maybe, obviously for a bit of fun, something like Fierce, Vex. That would have been a good matchup, but I don't think we'll be able to see that. However, I think what we'll see is the Endpoint Stiffmeister in towards that finals. That's what you'd expect, at least. And that's what's going to be dominating sort of these finals of the UK scene coming up. It is just going to be a Stiffmeister Endpoint show, unfortunately.
But it's nice we got all these leagues kind of wrapping up around the same time. Late November, December. It's good to see.
Yeah,
it's a busy set.
The ESEA season is coming to an end this month as well. Obviously, and the regular seasons end on the 18th. Playoffs then start basically the next day. Also, it's like the next week or something. They're set on a certain date. But yeah, so it is good to see this sort of. Seems EPS is coming to an end and stuff like that. It's all sort of wrapping up really nicely. But that is it done for Omen, and I believe is that all our standings now.
Yeah, that's all of our leagues and stuff covered. I
that is all.
Talk about everything wrapping up. I think we're now approaching our last topic.
Yes, very well done, Yumi. Well, now speaking of wrapping up leagues, we're wrapping up. As now we move, you may have seen in the title, and I've been teasing it a little bit on Twitter with the standings and scandal. Now we move to the scandal part. So we will discuss here the Bev situation. So as you can see on the thing, unfortunately my screenshotting ability was pretty bad. I didn't screenshot it properly in the Luxor statement. But basically, the organization made a statement stating, as statements do, basically that he had admitted to using a smoke exploit, and Bev on Twitter has said that the reason he was banned for cheating was because of a smoke exploit. Now, we've seen recent players banned, like Dotty, a Swedish player who frequents himself in the UK scene, was in FPL as well, claims that they were using so-called smoke exploit. Basically, it's just you're able to see, it's something to do with NVIDIA settings. Bev stated how you can use it later on. We'll have a screenshot of that as well. But we'll just quickly go through this statement. They said that the evidence provided that the organisation had nothing to do with this. They had no idea that Bev was using certain smoke bug, and Bev claimed himself he was not using it in leagues. But unfortunately, you can't. I don't know if he did. I can't say he didn't. Unfortunately for him, he's basically been fighting this battle on Twitter that he shouldn't be banned for 2 years because it's technically not cheating and stuff like that. Unfortunately, I disagree. You're cheating. You're basically using wall hacks, aren't you, mate? Like, let's be honest here.
And also the fact is that it's no different to. I mean, the thing was that he was able to host his own server that had his own custom smoke and Molotov files as well. And while they were joining ESEA games, what they would do is that they would consistently try or retry into the server until, I don't know, one of them magically worked and they'd start downloading the assets, and that would stay while the client was open. And like, how is that any different from me having a quick Google, just ESCA cheats, finding something that's like a subscription base. The sound effects were a quick prompt. How's that any different from searching out a cheat and using that? I mean, it's something that technically just exploits the game, right? It's the same kind of train of thought. So it was a stupid argument. I'm glad the guy's banned. I hope that he continues to be banned on services. I have no sympathy whatsoever. It's so like stupid.
Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. And by the way, we have no idea if it was a smoker. He could just straight up be cheating. Like, that's his opinion. Well, not his opinion. That's what he stated, that he used an exploit.
Yeah.
But my problem with that is that, well, firstly, he could be banned for cheating because maybe the ESEA admins reviewed it and saw that he was just shooting people. I mean, there's a great video on Twitter. Joshua, I'm sure everyone knows him. He released a great video of that, basically just showing him shooting at people through smokes. Yeah. So basically, he could have done that, or ESEA have a ban for illegal customization, which I believe is a 2-month one. I saw someone just before he was banned. I think it might have been someone like Dottie. Someone was banned for illegal customizations. So if you are legally customizing, why weren't you banned for that? Have you not submitted that ticket? Or he's speaking to the admins, he said on Twitter or something like that. Anyway, that he's submitted his response to them. I don't know. It could just be, yeah. So there you see, he's been banned. He's banned for the 2 years to 2020 now. I think it's fair. I'm under the impression that you probably think it's fair as well.
I'm angry when it comes to cheating. I've like very, very like everybody out. Like, if you're a cheater, you're out. But I think there are certain provisions, and it's usually I don't know. It's so ridiculous to argue over like, oh, hey, I was using an exploit versus I was using a cheat.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is, it's just as bad.
It is just as bad. It's just,
and the worst part is, I doubt he gets caught if he's like not a complete idiot about it, right? Like, this guy is just spray transferring people through smokes. Like, he can actually, like, I don't understand the thought process there. It's just like, oh yeah, he's on my screen, mate, I could kill him. Like, it's just
the video is, it's just so blatantly obvious what he's doing in the game, and like, he's just spraying through smoke, and then sort of he'd shoot another bullet through, just like, oh my god, I just randomly sprayed him through the smoke. How crazy of me! But it's so obvious, and it's such a stupid argument. I'm sorry, it's a sense of entitlement to him that I think is, well, I shouldn't be banned for cheating because it's only an exploit where I could shoot through smokes. Well, there's another exploit that allows you to shoot through smokes, and I think that's just wall hacking, I'm afraid.
In all honesty, I don't like talking about the subject. Like, although I was kind of like looking forward to this segment of it, the more we talk about it, the more kind of like I don't know. He seems to revel in the publicity, like, oh, he's famous now, you know.
Yeah, and
it's just...
he released a statement tagging Don Hatchie on how to use it and stuff like that.
Mhm.
It was this attitude around him that was, you know what, I'm a savant. I died for your. Is it gone
Okay.
live? Okay, there. Wait, is it?
No, we're still offline.
No, it's offline.
All right. So as far as we're, yeah, okay.
Are we back on?
Yeah, we're
right.
gonna wrap it up anyway. We kind of need
Yeah.
to wrap it up because our producer's internet is slowly but surely losing its life.
Yeah, that's going to be a problem for me. I'm now going to do some editing to put that clip on. Unfortunately, we do apologise for the quick break, but we will wrap it up. A short episode than we had last time, but that was less topics, and we basically covered everything we needed to in as much detail as it needed. So thank you everyone for joining us here today. I've been one of your hosts, Dream, or at Roy Rogue on Twitter. Make sure to follow at Map Control CS on Twitter. Make sure to follow us on Twitch. Also follow at Yumi TV and follow our producer at Frozen Fraser as well. Thank you for joining me again, Yumi, and we'll see you all next time.